Suerte. Hola, ¿qué tal amigos de Logic? Sean bienvenidos a esta quinta sesión del día. Estamos muy contentos porque, hoy hemos hablado y hemos estado mucho en la tónica de hablar de la IA enfocada a la práctica del abogado. Los últimos 2 días hablamos acerca de la IA respecto a el presente y el futuro. También hablamos de la IA respecto de la industria creativa y cómo está teniendo un impacto en la misma. Y hoy nos toca hablar acerca de la IA en la profesión del abogado, es decir, en la práctica del abogado. Entonces, hoy van a estar viendo cosas mucho más prácticas y el día de hoy estoy muy contento porque vamos a recibir a Tom Martin. Esta conversación va a ser enteramente en inglés. Esta es la única parte que van a estar escuchando en español porque a partir de un momento más vamos a hacer un switch a inglés. Entonces, yo les diría que si inglés no es una lengua que ustedes dominen, o simple y sencillamente no es algo que hay otra sala a la par. Entonces yo les recomiendo que si inglés no es su idioma preferido, pues puedan cambiar en este momento. Sin embargo, creo que vale muchísimo la pena, si entiendes inglés en un porcentaje alto, vale mucho, mucho la pena hablar de lo que vamos a hablar ahorita, que son los agentes de IA. Y la verdad es que Tom Martin es un gran experto, ahorita vamos a presentarlo. Vale mucho la pena escucharlo. Así que a partir de este momento, quien quiera continuar va a ser en inglés y quien no, pues entonces puede pasar a la siguiente sala. Tom, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great, Ricardo. Mucho gusto y gracias tanto para... Yo estoy encantado de participar. And that's why I'll be speaking in English, because my
Tom,
Spanish is not great.
you're a lawyer. You are professor in many universities. You have been around. I see you around. Your LinkedIn is full of events, and you are super active in this legal AI transformation. And you have a lot to talk, and you have a lot to share with us. So. I think this even is not gonna be complete if we cannot hear or listen to someone else in other countries. In this case, I think this is the best time to start. So please, Tom, who are you? Tell us a little bit about your story. What do you do? Who is Tom Martin?
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate the opportunity to get to talk about this stuff, but also like to reach out and speak to other communities besides just the US community. Um, so I'm the founder of a few things. Like I have a law firm. I am a practicing lawyer, so I have 25 years under my belt as a lawyer. I'm also the founder of a legal technology company called LawDroid. We do AI. We've been doing it for 8 years, so we've been w way ahead of the curve before it was cool to play around with AI. And I'm also now a professor at Suffolk Law School, and I'll be teaching a class to law students about generative AI. Um, so that's kind of my background and why hopefully I'm qualified to talk to you about this stuff. And just a little bit more about the company. LawDroid is there to help solo and small firms do more with less. And one thing is if you would like to follow along for additional information, I post a lot, like Ricardo mentioned, about the latest innovations with AI. And you could find that at lawdroidmanifesto.com here on the blog below.
Perfect, Tom. How do you get involved in this? I mean, because being here 8 years before, 6 years before everything exploded, because I think conversations start by November 2022 when everything was ChatGPT and all of us were jumping and try it. But before of that, you were 6 years working with this. How do you get involved?
Well, 8 years. Um, but the way I got involved back then was it was really an experiment. Okay, like chatbots, kind of the old-fashioned chatbots, which we'll talk about in this presentation, but they were just coming onto the scene. They're brand new. There were chatbots that were popularized by Facebook, and they're rule-based. right? So it was like, if this, then go this way. If that, then do something else.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of experimentation that I really want to emphasize. That's really the key. Experimentation, having an open mind. That's what helps you to learn these new tools and how best they can help you to do more, to make more money, to be successful.
Great. Tom, all yours. Thank you so much for preparing this conversation.
Yeah, again, thank you. And so let's jump right into it. The first thing I wanted to talk about is like, we're going to talk about AI agents, but what is the context? Like, what is the larger context that we're talking about um, for this conversation? And so, you know, I guess I'm quoting myself here, but my point is that in the past, when it's come to technology, like when I talked about it first 8 years ago, it was more like we had the luxury of dabbling in it, of testing it out, right? I don't think we have that luxury anymore. The way things are moving and progressing, as we've all seen, we just celebrated, as Ricardo pointed out, like the 2-year anniversary of ChatGPT coming out, and it changed the world. It is, even if it stopped right now and didn't do anything more, I think it would take at least 5 to 10 years for us to catch up with all of business, all of industry, incorporating these new changes throughout all of the different businesses that exist in the world. Um, so there's a lot to catch up with, and there isn't the luxury now of just sitting at the sidelines and waiting to see how it plays out. You need to get into this. So here's a hard fact. It's not just me saying this. These are hard numbers that came out from Clio, which has a case management system. They did a survey and they found that last year, 19% of legal professionals had used AI. And the big news that they threw out there this year was that that figure went up to 79% this year. So 79% of legal professionals are using AI. Now, does that mean that everyone is like voraciously just using it every single day, every single hour? No, no. The 79% is it's a spectrum. Some people are heavy users using it all the time. Other people are, maybe they've used it once or twice a week. But the point is that of that spectrum of people that have been exposed to AI, last year was 19%. Now it's gone to 79%. So what does that mean? That means when you look at adoption of AI, and remember that ChatGPT, within 2 months of November 2022, it gained 100 million users, right? It was the fastest product to gain 100 million users in history. And so this curve that you see here, the blue one, that's a normal adoption curve, right? When we hear about an adoption curve where there's innovators at the beginning, there's early adopters, and then here at the end, you have laggards or people that are skeptical sitting at the sidelines, remember? This normal curve is how innovations usually get adopted. But this yellow curve that you see here, it reflects more like what we're seeing, that 19 to 79% jump. It's because there's a very it's front loaded. There's a lot of people jumping on board and trying AI. And so that means that the point being is that it makes less sense to wait. Like if you wait and you're back here, everyone else has already jumped on board to get to understand it and learn it. And you'll be very, very far behind because the people that are jumping into it earlier, they're going to learn how to use it. They're going to find ways of incorporating it into what they do to be able to do more with less, be more profitable, handle more cases. And not just handle more, it's also about quality because when you have more time to work on the more sophisticated stuff, you could spend that time creating a better quality product or service.
Perfect. Yeah, it's like I think it's like having superpowers is just You just have to learn how to use them, but it's like, why the hell you will not use superpowers, right?
Yeah, if you could be Superman, wouldn't you want to? So, okay, so with that, it begs the question, what are AI agents? And so like this, an AI agent, it can help you do many things at once. It could read articles, it could work on the computer, it could answer phone calls. Like it is that idea to be Superman, to be able to do many things at one time. And so here you can see that an AI agent, you need four things to make an AI agent. The first, of course, is that you need an LLM. You need an AI model. It could be GPT-4o, it could be Claude, um, Claude Sonnet. Um, it could be any model. And then you attach it, you connect it to a knowledge base. So you need to have a collection of trustworthy information that you connect it to. Then you provide it with tools. Tools are interesting because the AI can actually decide on its own what tools to use and when tool use is appropriate. And then lastly, so it knows how to make these decisions, you give it instructions about what you want it to do. You have to give it a goal. You need to give it a purpose. So for example, it could be this agent is supposed to answer phone calls. And so you give it instructions about what kind of personality it's supposed to have. Friendly personality that um, it's supposed to give people different options. And then maybe some of the tools are it can transfer calls, it can take messages, and so it uses these tools when it's appropriate. And this is just a graphic to show you that this agent is comprised of these different things. If you don't have one of these, then it's really not an agent. Um, you need to have them all together. So the first thing that comes to mind, a lot of people get confused. They say, okay, well, there's this new thing called an AI agent that you're talking about. We've had chatbots. How's an agent different than a chatbot? And so if you look at the old-fashioned chatbot here on the left side, remember this? We've all been frustrated by this before, where, select an option. I want to see the main menu, select an option, see original option. Like it becomes chaos, right? It's like um, it can get crazy and it gets broken pretty easily. You can't really get help from it. AI agents are different. So the chatbot, it's rule-based, right? It has specific rules that say, if this happens, then do this. As we've seen, it can be very fragile because if somebody doesn't behave, then it gets broken. Conditional logic, so like the if then um, is the way that it has to make decisions. And it's really not making decisions. You've programmed it what to do. It leads to frustration and it's very simple. So that's the experience with a chatbot. And just to show you some code, and this is actually how I learned to code back when I was about 12 years old. I coded it on an Atari. I learned BASIC. BASIC is a programming language, but it's a very simple programming language. And you might program something like, do you need assistance? And you can see here that the computer is waiting for input of yes or no, right? And then you save the answer in this variable answers. And so if the answer is yes, then you ask, how can we assist you? But if the answer is no, then we print out, thank you for using our service. Have a great day. And so you would have to script out every single interaction, right? It would be very, very complicated over time, the more options you give to the user. And so it's really not sustainable to create a chatbot like this. And that's why it would break. So an agent, how's it different? Well, first of all, it's autonomous. So it could work independent of you. You don't have to script it. it can solve problems. So when you give it a unique situation, it could learn how to deal with that new situation without breaking. It's intelligent because it's tied to an AI model. The interaction is smoother because it can recover, and obviously more sophisticated. So the other question that comes to people's minds is, okay, I know that it's different from a chatbot, but how is it different than a copilot? Because now we're all familiar with copilots, right? Like ChatGPT. So how is something like ChatGPT, which is more advanced, how is that different than an agent? And so here is an example of a copilot, ChatGPT 4.0, and the agents. So copilot, how that's different is that it requires you to sit down at a computer, right? And you have to ask it to do something. So it's synchronous, right? It's you're there at the same time that ChatGPT is there, working on the laptop. It's also dependent on you because you have to give it a prompt, you have to give it instructions for it to give you a response. So you type it in, it gives you a response. You type in something else, it gives you a response. You're tied to the computer. So that means it's turn-based. You ask for something, it gives you a response. Prompt sensitive in that the way you ask it for something greatly determines how it responds. So that's a copilot. And an agent is different because it's asynchronous. You don't have to be tied to the computer. The agent can work independently of you, which is a great strength. And so you don't have to be sitting there for the back and forth. And it's not as sensitive to your prompt because you've already given it a set of instructions. You've already given it goals. So you don't have to be constantly updating it. So what are some of the benefits of using AI agents? Why would you want to use these things at all? Well, the first is that they're pretty cost effective versus using a human being. Okay, like one example, and I know this brings up the idea of like putting people out of work or losing jobs, but the reality is that there have been changes over time where certain job skills are less valuable, and so we get retrained, right, on new skills that are more valuable. And the same thing is happening now. One example that's obvious is like a call center. A call center where people are answering phone calls and they're pretty much saying the same things like, what's your name? What's your phone number? We'll have somebody call you back. Why would you have to have a human being doing that? It's not the best job either. Not the most, fun to do. So you can set an AI agent to do that job, and obviously could do it much more cost effectively than a person would on their own. It's also self-guided, like I mentioned before. You don't have to be sitting there with it to tell it what to do at every step. Scalable. Scalable is that it could help one person one-on-one, but it could also be helping hundreds of people at the same time. So if it's a call center with hundreds of phone calls coming in, or if it's a chatbot on your website where you have hundreds of people visiting your website and they want to get more information about your services, you can scale up to the demand with AI agents. It's teachable so that if it ever makes mistakes, you can, train the model, you could train the system about how to handle these new situations. And it's connected 24/7, 365. So it's constantly out there to help with whatever you need. Whereas we need to sleep, right? So you gain increased efficiency, enhanced decision making, new opportunities for legal services. So one thing, as lawyers is that you can create a product of your service that you can charge somebody for, and they get a legal document or service out of it, and you may not even need to be involved. You probably want to stay involved, but you don't need to be. An example is getting a will done. right? Or getting a trust done, estate planning. So if somebody passes away, what happens with the assets? Well, something like answers that they give, you could have an agent ask them questions to get all the information you need, and then create the document based upon their answers to the questions, and even charge them for that service, and only give them the document once payment has been received. And all of that could be happening online 24/7, 365, where an agent's doing the work and you're collecting the money. A safer way is that that document comes to you, the lawyer, for a final review where you get to meet with the client, but all the work has already been done. You might polish it up a little bit, right? But it saves a lot of time and effort. And of course, with any of these things, there's always ethical and legal considerations. Like I mentioned, just one, you want to stay in the loop. You want to, maintain your oversight of the final work product.
Tom, I wanna question you something
Yeah.
related, and I've seen like an evolution about ethical and legal considerations because at the very beginning, uh, and I'm saying like very beginning 2 years ago, when everything pops up and we started listening to some of I don't know, bars or people saying like, "Oh, using AI is not ethic. You have to check. You have to." And right now, I can see how that opinions or those opinions has been evolving in a way that are like much more open. So, but I would like to listen for you. What do you think? How are the opinions right now about the using of AI?
Well, I'm more familiar with the US and, across the 50 states, there's a lot of different opinions, right? Because there's 50 different states. And then within each state, there's different courts. And my understanding is that there's currently 200 different court orders where different judges have given different rules about disclosure, like having to let people know that you're using AI. Some of them, very little of them, but some of them have a ban on it saying you can't use AI in my courtroom. Um, it's definitely evolving. It's gotten more open over time. Um, but it's definitely something that we need right now to overthink a little bit because it's new. We need to be transparent. We need to be clear with our clients and the courts, of course, if we're using it, how we're using it. Um, but I think for right now, that's the most important part is just to be above board and transparent and double check your work, right? You don't want to you don't want to give up control over your work product. You're the lawyer. You're the lawyer. You need to look at it.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so to make things even more complicated, there's different types of AI agents, right? There's not just one kind of AI agent. There's different kinds of AI agents. And so I'm going to give you an overview. Basically, there's two kinds. I'll give you some examples. But one kind is an external, meaning that it interacts with people, right? It's external facing, it interacts with people. And then there's an internal AI agent where you don't see it. It doesn't interact with people. So first, let's look at an internal facing agent. So it's one that you wouldn't see normally. And in order for you to understand how it works, the first thing I need to explain to you is that there's, when you use AI, there's basically a pyramid of getting more accurate responses from it. So we all have heard of it hallucinating, and we all have heard of it making up responses. And the reason why it does that is because at the bottom here, ChatGPT, it's it's giving answers based upon what it learned when it was trained, right? when you ask ChatGPT a question, that's the only place it could get an answer from. It's kind of like if you ask a high school student something, they're just relying on what they've learned at that point. They're 15 years old. They have some answer in their head that they learned from life. But the way to make it even better, to make it even more accurate, is that you give some information in the prompt when you ask it a question, right? Better answer your question. But it could even do a better job when it uses something called RAG. So RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. It's a terrible phrase. It's really stupid. But the scientists call it retrieval augmented generation. What does that mean? What it means real simply is that you connect the AI to reliable documents, right? So when you do that, when you make that connection between the AI and these documents that you wanted to answer questions about, it does a much better job. It's much more accurate. It's less likely to make stuff up because it has the documents right in front of it. It's kind of like an open book exam, right? When the student could look at the book and then answer the professor's question, they're going to do a much better job because they have the open book in front of them, right? So that's what this is. It's like an open book exam. And to give you a graphic of what that looks like, you ask a question, looks through the doc, and then it goes through OpenAI or whatever AI model you're using, and then it gives you the response. So that way, you're getting a more informed, more accurate answer. Now, this is where the agents come in. So there's advanced RAG. So a more advanced version of retrieval augmented generation, a more a better way than this is this. So here you can see it's mostly the same as what I just showed you, right? You ask a question, it looks through the documents, but right here, before the answer comes to you at the end here, you see this bot in the middle? This agent, it acts as like a judge of the answer. Is this a good answer or a bad answer? Does it include hallucinations? Does it include information that's made up? Or is it accurate? And so that's what this LLM judge does. You add this agent to this process. And so when you ask a question, it retrieves the information, and the LLM judge looks at the answer and decides if it's good enough to give to you at the end of this, the user. So this agent here, you don't see it, obviously. It's within this system, but it's equally important in that it can help you to get better answers. Um, and so this is a different version of an agent that you would never see.
Um, Tom, in this case, do you think this is advanced in terms of do you need to learn to code in order to do this? Do you think there are some tools like a normal lawyer without coding experience can access in order to use the RAG? Because when we hear or when we listen about RAGs, it's always related with Llama Index, it's always related with Azure, and we start stepping in a very technical, high. It's. I think sometimes it feels like it's a territory far away from the law. So how do you think like a normal lawyer that wants to step into these programs or racks or this is very technical for some people. How do you think it will be something accessible to them in order to not just understand what is going on, but also try to work with?
So you're right. For the most part, if you wanted to implement something like this, yourself, you would probably learn how you'd have to learn how to code in Python, at least. Python is a much more understandable computer language, but it's still hard, right? It still takes time. There are some systems, though, that make it possible to create something like this using no code. Like you don't have to code. You could just drag and drop. And it just so happens LawDroid is one of those systems. Um, on our platform, you could actually create a RAG system in 2 minutes because we have a template where you just click on the template, you add your information, and you have a RAG system going. Um, so there are systems like LawDroid. There's other ones that are available. I would definitely, invite you to do some Google searches for, document AI, and you could find different systems online. Um, and, of course, I'm going to mention my company, but there's other companies out there that do this.
Yeah. What do you
Um,
think about some of the new options of no code or low code, like Replit or Cursor in this case?
yeah, and I'm actually going to mention Replit later.
Okay.
It's a great example of an agent.
Awesome.
So let me show you a few external facing examples. So these are agents that do interact with people. Um, Here it is. This is the one that we just mentioned. This is Replit. Okay. So if you haven't checked this out, I highly recommend you check it out because I believe they have a free trial. And even when you pay for it, I've already paid for a year. It's like $120 for a full year. So it's a pretty good deal. I don't get paid anything for for recommending them. But what they do is if you have a simple request, like you can see that this one is, um, you know how you see websites sometimes where it's coming in the future and you want people to sign up so that they can learn about whatever it is that you're selling. Well, that's called a waitlist website. And so if you wanted to build that, you know, maybe you could find a template online. Maybe you would have to hire a programmer to create it for you. But here you could simply tell it, just like ChatGPT, you give it a prompt, build a waitlist site with React. React, by the way, is a computer framework that is used to create websites. So build a waitlist site for my startup, which collects emails and full names from users, includes some basic information about my startup, make the design modern and professional. So you're just using natural language, plain language to describe to the agent what you want it to build. And then you want to connect it to a database to store the registrations. So I don't have a video of this one, but yeah, you could just get something going like that.
This is um this is pure gold. I'm not gonna be. I'm not sure how to say it, but this Replit, if you are tempted to start, you should do it. This is gold. You should try see, and it will just show you how smart and potent and strong is this AI and what you can do with it. So I don't know. The only thing I want to tell you is just try it. Please try it. Think so.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's a great place to start and experiment. Remember again, experiment, be curious, have an open mind, and test these things out all over, all the different um, tools that are out there. Another thing is that what this does, you give it this prompt, and then it goes about planning the website. So it'll say, it's like thinking, and it'll plan out each of the different steps. And once it creates something for you, you can test it. And if you get an error, you could actually paste the error into this text box and say, hey, I got this error. And then you put the error code in there and you click return, and it actually like will fix itself. It will read the error and it'll figure out what went wrong and then it'll fix it. So you could work through it like that. I do want to give you a little bit of a warning though. It's not perfect. It's not going to create something that you want to put online and start charging for. You, you know, there's some things that it doesn't get right. And sometimes it breaks and it can't fix itself. And, that is where a programmer can help you to fix it and get it back on track. But at least you're not spending like the hundreds of hours that you might be spending with them to fix it. But I do recommend you still work with a programmer who can help you to finish it, right? So another one that we've heard a lot about, right, is OpenAI's GPTs. They have the GPT store. GPT stands for generative pre-trained transformer. Another stupid phrase, like it's really bad that they came up with. But they're like they're like AIs, right? And all of these different AIs in the store, people have made them to do different things. So this one here from Khan Academy, and Khan Academy is great for teaching kids math and different things. It can tutor people. It can help you learn about how to code. This one down here, Designer GPT, can help you to create a beautiful website. This one here, Consensus, it has a whole bunch of academic papers. So papers about maybe like chemistry or psychology. You can ask it questions and it could give you summaries of those different um, articles. And this one here, All Trails, will help you find some great trails to go hiking on. So each of these GPTs have been created by different people to do different things connected to a different knowledge base. So different, collection of information. And you could even create one yourself. If you have your own ChatGPT account, you could go on there and you can create your own custom GPT. Now, a more practical way is that you create a GPT where maybe you have a bunch of different documents, a bunch of different examples of, let's say, a will, a last will and testament that you've made. And you give the GPT a bunch of examples of wills that you've written. And then you tell it, ask the person, what their name is, who they want to give their property to when they pass away, who should be in charge of their estate. And then it could ask the right questions to fill in those documents, right? So you can use these GPTs for legal practice as well. And this is what it looks like when you go in there to build it. You give the GPT a name, you give it a short description of what it's supposed to do. These are the instructions. Like I said, it's not an agent unless you give it instructions about how it's supposed to behave, what it should be doing, what it shouldn't do, you know. Conversation starters. So like when you start talking with it, it could give you examples of what it could do for you. Like I can write a last will and testament for you. Down here, you see knowledge where you can upload files. This is where you can upload examples of the documents that you want it to fill out. And then you could also add down here, you see web search, or maybe you can create images if that's important to what this agent is supposed to do. Another one, a big one that came out from Anthropic. Anthropic is the company behind Claude Sonnet, Claude Haiku, Claude Opus. So they came up with this new thing called computer use. Now, this is going to blow your mind if you haven't heard about it. It basically lets the AI use your computer. You don't have to tell it what to do at all. It can actually do it on your computer without you having to ask it. And here's an example. So here in the upper left-hand corner, you can see here's the prompt. Please fill out the vendor request form using data from the spreadsheet. And so you can give it the spreadsheet, you can give it the form that you want to fill out, and then you tell it what to do. And it could take each line, like Table Lumber Company and their phone number, and fill out this vendor request form. And it could do that just based upon you giving it these directions. So it's very similar to having an employee. right? Because you give the employee, hey, there's a spreadsheet. I need you to fill out this form. This is how I want you to do it. And then it just does it. So yeah, it's it doing it this way, it's no longer where you need to program it. You just tell it what to do with plain language, and it could use your computer to get stuff done. And next year, so early next year in January, OpenAI is going to come up with its own version of that, which it's calling Operator. And so that's going to be really cool. I'm sure they'll have like a big announcement, a big demo, and we'll all see what it could do. So an example that I want to show you that will make it much more real is an example I created with the LawDroid system. But for fun, it's not legal. It's an agent that's trying to sell people tickets to a concert. Okay. So I'm going to show you the demo, and then after that, I'll show you the instructions about how I made it do what it did. So here is what it looks like. And on the right side, this is the conversation. When was the last time you went to a concert? 5 years ago. Well, ain't that a spell? How about we change that? I got 3 tickets to Depeche Mode at the Wiltern Theater in Los Angeles. They put on a show like no other, I tell you. What do you say? So there's a bit of a weird accent here, right? With the way the bot's talking. I play dumb. Depeche who? Depeche Mode, darling. They're a real big deal in the music world. Been around since the 1980s, influencing all these artists. I'm playing dumb again. What are a few of their songs? I really know Depeche Mode. I'm a fan of their band. But then it says, okay, enjoy the silence or personal Jesus to tell me about some of their songs. By the way, none of this is scripted. I haven't told the AI what to say. And then I say, oh, okay, I remember. I don't remember what they look like. And then the AI shows me a picture to remind me what they look like. So now I remember. And the agent is just its purpose is to sell me tickets. So now it goes back to now that you get this, now you remember what they look like. Let's talk about selling you those tickets to see Depeche Mode. And I respond, okay, how much are the tickets? Well, darling, I've got these tickets for a fair price of $150 each. They're prime seats, I tell you. How many are you thinking of snagging? And then I object to it saying like, $150 for each ticket is too much for me. In the background, I've given it kind of a ideal pricing of like what's the lowest it could take. But to start out asking for 150 bucks. And it says it could settle on 100 bucks, but it calls me sugar. And I push back on that. I say, sugar, you're getting a little fresh there. Why are you calling me sugar? You know, normally that would break a normal chatbot. And this one, oh, my apologies if I overstepped. I didn't mean anything by it. Let's get back to business. How about those tickets for 100 bucks each? I tell it I only need 2, I don't need 3. And because it recognized that we're deal making, it asked me it's my name. I say Jane Austen, how many tickets to, it even can, this is tool usage. It knows to use the tool to process a credit card. I give it like a make-believe, credit card number. And then it summarizes, okay, we have a deal. It's for 2 tickets for 200 bucks total for this concert with Depeche Mode. And so the way we created this is using our system where you can select the AI system, you connect it to that knowledge base. It was the Depeche Mode Wikipedia page that we connected it to where it got all the information about Depeche Mode. Here's the tools, the tool to allow somebody to buy tickets. And you also describe the conditions when it would show the form to buy tickets or to show the image of Depeche Mode. And here's the tools um, for gathering how many tickets, for gathering the credit card information. Here's the tool that just has an image of Depeche Mode. And then the instructions here I'll show them in a little more detail, but you assign the AI agent a role, a personality. You can see here, I said Southern charm. That's why I was talking kind of funny in that accent because I told it should have that kind of personality. So here you can see in black and white how I programmed it. And look, I'm not saying, okay, I say this, then you respond that. I say this other thing, and then you say this other thing. I give it a role where I tell it that it's an expert salesman. Your job is to sell concert tickets, and you have 3 tickets to sell to the Depeche Mode concert. Then I give it the basic facts about the concert. It's happening on May 8th. It's happening at the Wiltern Theater. And I also give it a personality, Southern charm, but I also tell it, don't keep on talking forever. Make your responses about 2 or 3 sentences. Be informal, conversational. You're a smooth operator, right? And then the sale instructions, you're to have a conversation with the user. Your job is to sell the tickets. Use your persuasive skills to convince the user to buy as many of your tickets as possible. So just with these general directions, it's able to go through that and go back and forth with me to sell tickets. And here are the instructions for tool usage. How does it know to show me the order form? It understands that if there's an agreement on the ticket price, then to use this form for the ticket order. And then if there's any interest in what Depeche Mode looks like, to show me the picture of Depeche Mode. So just with plain language, you've created something that you maybe could create on Replit. Maybe you can create if you knew how to code. But here, you just explain to it what you want. And there was no code involved at all. Do you have any questions, Ricardo, or we could go on to the use cases?
No, we have about 5 to 10 minutes left because we need to close. We need to start closing. So if we can start checking use cases, or if you have anything else you wanted to show us, whatever you want is best.
I could wind it up in that time. So the use cases, you could use it for client intake and communication. Um, you can assign an AI agent to do initial screening of clients, to do question and answer. It'll use its natural language processing to intelligently respond to people. It could even schedule appointments for you, automate reminders, and do follow-up. You could also use it to personalize your legal services. So it's not always robotic. It's not, it's not necessarily mechanical. It could help to personalize your automation because it could use prediction to personalize case strategies. It could also customize documents, give you proactive notifications, and you can imbue it like you saw. You can give it a personality and make it more customized. It could also help you with your cases and workflow. It can help you to prioritize your tasks, to do some basic legal research, to automate court form completion. So asking a client questions, filling out the forms, and also it could be trained on your case file. And so if a client had a question about what's the status of my case, which we know they want to know all the time, but we're not always available, we could connect an agent to the case file and it can answer questions to keep people up to date about their case. It could also enhance client engagement by giving anytime support, like I just mentioned, to simplify the legal explanation so that it's easier for people to understand. Sometimes they have a hard time understanding lawyer speak and lawyer language. So it could help to make it more easy for regular people to understand. But the last point I'll make is that we still have to use our common sense. We still have to use ethics. The first is that even though we have an AI involved, we still want to use our own judgment. So the final review should still be in our hands as lawyers. In technical speak, they call it about a human in the loop. You want to keep a lawyer in the loop so that you're the final word. And the other thing, when people worry about AI replacing our jobs or AI agents replacing our jobs, remember a really important reason that people come to us as human beings is that we can give them confidence, we can give them peace of mind and guidance. And people come to rely upon us for that. In lawyers are also called not just, you know, lawyers, but also counselors. And so the counselor part is going to be an even bigger part of what we do in the future. So that's my presentation on AI agents. I'd really love if you signed up for LawDroid Manifesto, where you can keep up to date with the most recent innovations in AI. And that's lawdroidmanifesto.com.
Tom, thank you so much for this presentation. Please, if you have the chance, check it out. Tom is doing amazing work. Follow him on LinkedIn. It's really impressive how active you are. And for now, I would just want to thank you so much for having this time with us to preparing this presentation. And I would like to just to finish with this question. How much do you think is going to change the law profession in the next 10 years with these tools? And how do you think people who take advantage of those are going to have advantage to the rest of the lawyers?
I think it's going to dramatically change the legal profession. Like, keep in mind, I'm a lawyer myself for 25 years. I'm not trying to sell you on what I do. I'm talking about how this is affecting me too, because I still have a working law firm. And I think over 10 years, which right now, super long time, we've seen in 2 years all this crazy development with AI. So in 10 years, how we practice as lawyers is going to change fundamentally. The court system, it take time to you'll be in a good
Tom, thank you
state.
so much for being with us. Al resto de la gente, muchísimas gracias por estar en esta sesión. Gracias